Hey, and welcome back to the fifth lecture in our HTML and CSS web design series. This one's on internal styles. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to write and apply internal styles. We're going to talk about IDs and classes in CSS. We're going to talk about style overrides by placement, and we're going to apply fundamentals of CSS, including multiple classes, nested elements, and multiple rules. To this point, we've been writing our styles using the style attribute, which is called an inline style. When we make the move to internal styles, we're going to make a style tag, which you can see there on the right. That style tag goes inside of the head element of the document. So far, the only thing we've had in head is title. Now we're going to add the style tag up there. Styles are assigned by tag, class, or ID. Um, the syntax remains the same when we talk about name value pairs separated by a semicolon, separated by a colon, and then using semicolons to have multiple rules. So you can see just some examples on the right. We've got the body written here is going to have a background color of blue and a color of white. Any cards inside of a div are going to have a border, a width, and a height. There's an ID called main, which has a margin. And then this has spans that are inside of navs getting a certain display. We'll get a little more into all that as we go through, but it's important to see what this looks like. So we're going to have all the styles in one place at the top of the page, and it's going to give us better control over our pages. So benefits of internal styles, they allow us to style multiple elements with the same style. So if I had a situation like what you see on the left, which is the way we would have done it previously, using the style attribute and doing inline styles, I had to write the same thing for each one of those divs: color blue, margin 10 pixels, text decoration, underline. Now, when I make that an internal style, I apply that rule to all divs. So any div that I write is going to be blue, margin 10 pixels, and text decoration underline. Let's take a look at an example that came from one of our previous lessons where we had these sections and we had styled each of these three sections to look like this. So what we're saying now is that we would just simply come into the head, type style, say, okay, I would like to affect section tag. And then I can take all of this styling that I had before. And I'm just going to do a little bit of formatting to make it look nicer. A little bigger here for us. Okay. We've got that. And then we move this down and we move that down. All right. So that's typically how we write it. Then I come down here and I get rid of all of these style attributes that we had. And you're going to see it really cleans up our HTML. So now we're really separating design from structure. And it doesn't change anything that's over here. Now, the really nice thing is that if I want to change the background color to red, I change it in one place and it changes on all of the sections. If I want to change now the color to black and maybe make the width 150 pixels, I have better, faster control over everything that I'm doing over every section tag that I have. Okay, let's get back into it here. All right, we can make, so one of the rules, one of the problems we run into here, obviously, is that what if I want a div that isn't following these rules? What if I want to make a div that's something else? So we come up with a little bit of conditional rules, rules that only get applied when we want them to be. So what you're seeing here is I had part one and part three, I wanted to have these same styles, but part two, I did not. This is how I'd have to do it with inline. When I go to internal styles, I make something called a class. A class in CSS uses a period, a dot. So dot special refers to it as the special class. it gets the rule color blue, margin 10 pixels, text decoration underline. And then you'll see down here in the HTML part, I just apply that class where I want it to be. So I use an attribute inside the div called class equals special. And I'm applying that to part 1 and part 3, not applying it to part 2. So now I have this style rule that I get to apply when I want to, but it doesn't affect all of the divs. I can override internal styles with inline styles. So for example, let's say I want these three to all be the same again, except I want part 2 to be red and I want the other ones to be blue, but the rest of it's the same. It's still 10 pixels and underlined with margin 10 pixels and underlined. You'll see over here, I'm just writing the rule for divs because I want all divs to be that again. I could again use a class if I wanted to. But now when I come down, I'm going to write style equals color red in part 2. And what that's going to do is that's going to override this color blue. Anytime you use an inline style, it's going to be treated as more important than an internal style. And so you can kind of make exceptions to the rule in that way. So when I want to style elements, a single tag is styled by listing the tag name. Notice no angle brackets, followed by a set of curly braces. So in this case, I'm setting the rule for the section. I can do multiple tags being styled at the same time. So this is going to make all section and all aside tags be blue and centered. And then, oh, sorry about that. And then I can nest tags. And so in this one, what I'm saying is just the span tags that are inside section tags will be blue and centered. So not all span tags, just the ones that are inside of section tags. Um, Coming back a little bit to conditional styling, we talked a little bit about classes. So here's another example of a class up here. So the class blue is blue and centered, and then I assign that by doing class equals blue. When I make a class, I can assign that to as many elements as I want on a page. There's another type of conditional styling that's called an ID. Um, so in this case, I'm making an ID called special. And you'll see down here in the HTML, I use the attribute ID. The biggest difference between these, besides the fact that it's class and ID and dot versus pound sign or hashtag, is that it is in their usage. The class is designed to be used as many times as you want on a page. An ID must be unique to the page. In other words, if an item has an ID, no other item on the page can have that ID. And as we get into JavaScript later on and forms later on, we will find a little more why IDs have to be unique. But for now, just understand that no two items on the same page can have the same ID. So that's a really important factor for us to consider there. All right, so that's pretty much it. I mean, that's internal styles. It's so we're kind of transitioning the way that we've been doing styles. So the only new tag we had is the style tag. We didn't pick up any new styles. We just talked about classes, ID, and nested tags inside of that. So here's a practice. You go out and you open this file, which you can get from the website. See the comments below to get the address of the web page. And then we're going to make the following changes. We're going to make the header tag have a background color of black text and a color of white. We're going to make all the section tags have a margin bottom of 10 pixels. We're going to set all span tags to be inside section tags to be underlined. Create an ID style called third and set the text to bold, and then apply that to the third section tag. And then create two classes, one called blue that sets the text color of blue, and one called italic that sets the font to italic, and then apply both to the second section tag. So when we look at this file, what we see is this. We just see some straight HTML down here. There's no CSS written in there, and this is really the goal. We want our HTML to be separate from our CSS. We want our structure to be separate from our design, okay? So this is what we're looking at right now, and here's the solution to that. So inside of the head, I made a style. Header, background color black, color white, section, all sections have a margin bottom of 10 pixels. All spans inside of a section become underlined. The ID of third gets a font weight bold. There's a class called blue that sets set to blue, and a class called italic that gets set to italic. And then down here, you'll see on the second section, I do class equals blue space italic, and that applies both classes to the same element. And then down here in the third section, I have to set ID equal to third. Okay. So that is the solution. Here's another look at that solution. Um, Again, in this case, I kind of condensed the way that I was writing my CSS so that it fit on the page. But I typically write my CSS organized this way. It makes it much easier to read and follow and find different things. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time in our next segment when we talk about lists.